The island looked like paradise in the brochure. But once we got there, it felt like a bad copy of one. The beach was empty, the water murky, and the cabins were too far from each other. Anna didn't seem to care. She said she wanted peace and privacy. I thought she meant time together. A young guy met us at the dock. He wore a shirt that said staff and had that awkward smile people use when they're not paid enough to deal with tourists. His name was Leo. He helped us carry our bags, eyes darting between us like he was trying to read something in our faces. Our cabin was small, with creaky floors and a bed that smelled like bleach. Anna unpacked quietly, folding her clothes with this mechanical precision that made me feel like she'd done it alone 1,000 times before. We tried to talk. She nodded without listening. At dinner, she was different. She laughed, touched my hand, said she was happy. I believed her. We went back to the cabin and she poured the wine that came on the house. It was bitter, but she insisted I drink more. By the time I realized how heavy my eyelids felt, it was too late. I woke up to the sound of a fly buzzing near my ear. My head throbbed. My arms were behind me, my ankles tied to the chair legs. For a few seconds, I didn't even panic. I just stared at the rope, trying to understand what kind of joke this was. Then I saw her. Anna was sitting on the bed, legs crossed, scrolling through her phone like she was waiting for a delivery. Her hair was up, her makeup perfect. When she finally looked at me, she didn't flinch. She just said, "You shouldn't have trusted me so easily." A man came out of the bathroom, tall, tanned, confident. He smiled at me the way people smile at something already broken. He kissed her in front of me, slow and deliberate. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat was dry, my body too weak to fight. He asked her when they should start. She told him soon. Then she looked at me again, cold, detached, and said this had always been the plan. They'd been waiting for this trip. I was just a ticket to a payout, and my death would look like a stupid accident. Anna started talking like we were at dinner again. She said she wanted to clear the air before it all ended. She told me about Daniel, the man standing behind her, and how they had met long before I ever came into the picture. Every word felt like a nail going deeper. She said she married for convenience, that she'd already planned how it would happen. The insurance money, the fake witnesses, the tragic story of the husband who fell from the dock after drinking too much. She spoke with no emotion, as if she were describing someone else's life. Then she grabbed a knife from the table and started tracing it along my arm, light enough not to cut. She asked if I ever wondered why she picked me. I didn't answer. She pressed harder until a drop of blood slid down my wrist. Daniel told her to hurry up, that they needed to make it look clean. She ignored him, focusing on me, smiling. She said this was her favorite part, when people realized they were never loved. I kept my mouth shut. There was nothing I could say that would make her stop. While all this was happening, Leo was doing his last walk before going to sleep. He passed by our cabin and saw Anna through the thin curtains. She was talking to someone who wasn't me. He couldn't see the man's face clearly, but it was enough to make him stop walking. He froze. For a few seconds, he stayed still, then turned around and started walking away fast. Before he reached the path to the main building, a door slammed behind him. Daniel was there, and Leo could see him perfectly. Leo didn't look back. He ran. Outside, Daniel had gone after Leo. He sprinted down the sand path, cutting through the trees toward the main dock. The wind carried Daniel's voice, angry, desperate, getting closer. Leo tripped once, scraped his hand on a rock, but didn't stop. The tension was unbearable. Every sound felt amplified. The crunch of sand, the rustle of leaves, the thud of footsteps behind him. When he finally saw the dim light of the service shack near the dock, he started shouting for help. 2 maintenance workers were there, half asleep, and one of them grabbed a flashlight. By the time Daniel reached the clearing, Leo was already behind the workers. The men didn't know what was happening, but Daniel stopped when he saw them. He stood there, breathing hard, his shirt soaked in sweat, eyes wild. The workers threatened to call the police, and Daniel turned back, disappearing into the dark path. Leo didn't wait. He used the radio inside the shack to call for help. The connection was weak, but it went through. The local police were already on another part of the island, close enough to respond. Back in the cabin, Anna was getting restless. She checked her phone again, muttering that Daniel was taking too long. She paced around, kicking the burnt photo ashes from the floor. I stayed quiet, wrists raw, trying to loosen the rope without her noticing. She suddenly stopped and looked out the window. Headlights. For a split second, she looked confused. The sound of boots and voices hit the silence. She rushed toward the knife, but before she could reach it, the door burst open. 3 officers came in, shouting. She froze. One of them grabbed her arms while the others spread out, checking the room. Daniel was dragged in seconds later, covered in dirt, screaming at her not to say anything. She shouted his name like a warning, but no one cared. One of the officers cut the ropes off my wrists. My hands were shaking too much to move. I remember them pulling me up, guiding me outside, asking if I was hurt. I couldn't answer. The air outside felt thick, full of gasoline and sea salt. They sat me on the steps while they cuffed the 2 of them. Anna kept her eyes on me the whole time. Not angry, not scared, just empty. They were both charged. Attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud. The case made headlines for a few days because it was too cinematic to be real. Anna didn't speak at the trial, but Daniel did. He said it was all her idea. She smiled when he said it, like she was proud. Leo testified, too, and that was the only reason I knew his part of the story. He said he didn't understand what he saw that night until it was too late. The officers called him the reason I was alive. I thanked him once outside at the courthouse. He just said, "Don't mention it," and left before the reporters could find him. In 2017, Antonio Navarro Cerdan was murdered in Valencia, Spain. His wife, Maria Jesus Moreno Canto, widely known as Magi, the Black Widow, and her lover were convicted of planning and carrying out the crime. The case became a media sensation due to its mix of passion, betrayal, and manipulation. Magi maintained an affair while plotting her husband's death, using her lover to execute the plan. Though not a honeymoon murder, it perfectly fits the pattern of love, deceit, and fatal obsession that later inspired a film and a documentary adaptation.
Clara and I arrived in Bali on a humid Tuesday afternoon. The heat felt like it was pressing down on us the moment we stepped out of the airport. We'd been married less than a year, and this was supposed to be our big vacation, somewhere quiet, far from everything. The hotel looked perfect online, isolated on a cliffside with a private pool and an ocean view. It was exactly what she wanted. The staff was polite but distant. No one smiled too long. A man helped us with our luggage but didn't say a word. I remember Clara whispering that he never made eye contact. We ignored it and went to our room. It was small but nice. White sheets, bamboo furniture, and a sliding door that opened to the balcony. The air smelled like salt and mildew. That first night was calm. We had dinner at the hotel restaurant, drank too much wine, and went back to the room laughing. I fell asleep first. When I woke up around 3 a.m., I heard something that sounded like someone pacing slowly outside our door. I waited, listening. It stopped after a minute, and I convinced myself it was the sound of the night guard doing rounds. I didn't mention it to Clara. The next morning, we went down for breakfast. I noticed 2 men sitting in the corner near the entrance. Both wore dark shirts and sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. One of them stared at me when I looked up. I turned away quickly, pretending I hadn't noticed. By the second night, Clara was acting restless. She said she didn't feel safe, like someone was always watching us. I tried to calm her down, but truthfully, I'd seen the same 2 men near the pool that afternoon. They weren't guests, I could tell. They didn't swim or talk to anyone. They just sat there, pretending to scroll on their phones, always facing us. We spent most of the evening in our room. Clara wanted to call her parents, but they didn't answer. I told her I'd go down to the front desk to ask about it. The lobby was empty except for the same man who carried our bags on the first day. He was wiping the counter slowly, like he wasn't listening. I asked about the internet, and he just nodded without looking at me. I went back upstairs, uneasy. When I entered the room, Clara was sitting on the bed, pale. She said someone had knocked while I was gone, just 2 soft taps on the door. When she looked through the peephole, there was no one there. I checked the hallway, nothing. The silence in that corridor didn't feel normal. It felt staged, like everyone was waiting for something. I locked the door and pushed a chair under the handle. We kept the lights on the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. Every small sound from outside made me jump. Around 4 a.m, I heard another knock, this time slower, deliberate. Clara covered her mouth, shaking. I didn't open it. We tried to act normal in the morning, went to the beach, took some photos, pretended things were fine, but it wasn't. The same 2 men were there again, sitting under an umbrella not far from us. One of them was pretending to read a newspaper, upside down. Clara wanted to go back to the hotel immediately. That night she told me she wanted to leave. I checked flights, but everything was full until Friday. She suggested we call the embassy. I told her to wait 1 more day. Maybe we were just overthinking it. But I was lying. Every time I turned around, I expected to see those men again. The tension grew heavier as the sun went down. We ate dinner in silence and went straight to our room. Around midnight, we heard a sound. A slow, dragging noise outside the door, like fabric sliding over the floor. We froze. Then came 3 short knocks. Clara whispered that we should call the front desk. I tried, but the phone was dead. No tone, no signal. I stared at the door for what felt like hours. When I finally looked through the peephole, all I saw was darkness. Nothing had happened. Next night, our last night there, Clara was exhausted. She hadn't slept properly since we arrived. Her eyes looked sunken, her voice cracked every time she spoke. I promised her we'd leave the next day no matter what. She nodded, but didn't say anything. We ordered food to the room. When the knock came, I hesitated before opening. It was a hotel worker holding a tray, smiling faintly. I thanked him, gave him a tip, and closed the door. The meal tasted like nothing. I remember how quiet it was while we ate, the air conditioner humming unevenly. Later, Clara took a shower. I sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through my phone, trying to book an earlier flight. Then another knock. Gentle, familiar. I told myself it was room service collecting dishes. I got up and opened the door. The 2 men were standing there. One of them raised something shiny, metal, and before I could speak, it smashed against my face. Pain exploded in my skull. My vision blurred. I fell backward, hearing Clara scream from the bathroom. I tried to get up, but a boot hit my ribs. I saw one of them grab her by the arm, dragging her out. She kicked, hit him, screamed my name, but the other man punched her hard enough to silence her. I crawled forward, reaching for her, but another hit came down. Everything went dark. When I woke up, the room was dim and smelled like blood and wet fabric. My head throbbed. The bed was upside down, the curtains torn, the bathroom door was open. Lights still on. Clara was gone. I called her name, my throat raw. No answer. I stumbled into the hallway, empty. The entire floor looked deserted. No staff, no guests. I ran to the elevator, but it didn't respond. I took the stairs to the lobby, shouting for help. The front desk was empty again. Phones disconnected. I felt like the whole hotel had died overnight. I went back to the room, dizzy. Everything looked untouched, except for one thing. A large black suitcase sitting near the balcony. It was ours, but we hadn't used it since the first day. My stomach turned. I stepped closer, each step slower than the last. The zipper was half open. I knelt down and pulled it. A wave of rot hit me. Her hair was the first thing I saw. Tangled, blonde, stiff. Her skin was pale, lips cracked open. She was folded inside, knees bent unnaturally against her chest. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. I couldn't scream, I just sat there shaking. The world silent, except for the sound of the zipper still dangling. The police arrived hours later. I don't remember calling them. Maybe someone else did. They dragged me out of the room, sat me down in the lobby, and questioned me for hours. They thought I did it. Said it looked like a domestic murder. My fingerprints were everywhere. I told them about the men, the knocks, the attack. No one believed me. It wasn't until they checked the cameras that they saw two figures entering our floor at midnight and leaving 20 minutes later with something heavy between them. The hotel staff claimed they'd never seen those men before, but one of the officers, an older guy, told me quietly that they'd been following Clara for days before the trip. A week later, Interpol confirmed it. Her father had been involved in some shady business deals back home. Money laundering, stolen assets, offshore accounts. The men worked for one of the people he'd cheated. They couldn't find him, so they found her instead. That's why they waited. That's why they followed us. They used me as a witness, not a suspect. But every night since then, I've dreamed of that suitcase, of the zipper closing, sealing her inside while I was lying unconscious just a few feet away. It's horrible. It's like I can see how it happened, but in reality, I know it was probably much worse. The story I'm about to tell you may seem rather improbable, but rest assured that if my story were not hard to believe, I would not be alive. It all started that fateful Saturday. My wife and I had just gotten married and decided to start our honeymoon. This was my first day of honeymoon with her, and we were going to an island paradise on a beautiful cruise ship. Everything was going well until a strong storm hit the cruise ship with full force. The ship was going back and forth. Furniture and pictures were falling down. Children were crying, and some parents with seasickness were vomiting so much that they couldn't calm them down. The captain gathered us in the main salon to give us some tranquility. The rain stopped after a few minutes, but the cruise ship lost its course. Out of nowhere, a loud bang on the bottom of the ship alerted everyone. The ship's workers went down to see what was happening, and in a few seconds, the screams began. Violent screams, full of pain and panic, covered every meter of the cruise ship. Then, silence. The captain told us to lock ourselves in our rooms. From there, the nightmare began. In a matter of minutes, the lights went out and the screams multiplied. When we thought of leaving the room, it was too late. The screams were getting closer and closer. "Please help us! It's right behind us! Please! No!"
What should we do? Should we help them?
No. We don't know what's going on. We could be in danger too, especially if we go that way.
And we are just going to stand here?
No. For now, we should hide under the bed.
Why?
Because someone can be attacking us, like terrorists or something.
Terrorists? In a cruise?
I don't know, okay? But we really should hide. If we see water in the floor, the cruise is sinking. Then we should run upstairs, but only if that happens.
Okay, you're right.
What was it that was killing all the passengers? The noise came from below. Did a submarine hit us? Suddenly, my bedroom door exploded. My wife and I were hiding under the bed when we saw what came in. It was a miracle we didn't scream. A strange being was standing in front of us. It looked like an amphibian, but its legs were positioned like those of a human. It inspected the room for a while and, disinterested, it left. We thought about staying hidden until the monster left, but we began to feel water brushing against our toes. The ship was flooding. We took a chance and ran out of the room, and when I turned around to look back, I saw it. It was a huge being, more than 2 meters long. It was a huge amphibian with a huge toad head. When it looked at me, I noticed that it was swallowing a person. The victim was being swallowed without being chewed, as if it was entering a black hole. The legs kicked desperately until suddenly they stopped moving and ended up entering the amphibian's mouth. Once it had devoured its prey, the creature began to run towards us. It was very fast, and the big head start we had wasn't enough. In an act of desperation, I grabbed a decorative painting and used it to attack the monster and buy us some time. To my surprise, the monster dodged me without any difficulty. At that moment, I realized that I was about to die, exposed before this horrendous and dangerous being. But to my surprise, something much worse happened. The monster ignored me and kept running. He never chased me. He wanted my wife. My wife made it to the door, but before she could close it, the monster reached in. She used all her strength to try and close it, but it was obvious that she was giving in to the horrendous being. As the monster was about to open the door, I hit it using the frame with all of my strength. Being distracted, it didn't dodge my blow, and I managed to stun it for a few seconds, which I used to go to my wife and close the door before it reached us. I told my wife to run, that I would stay and lock the door, and if either of us let go, we would both die. She understood and ran desperately, and when she got far enough away, I let go of the door and started running. This time I had no chance. The monster was too close and would catch up with me. I started to escape through the side of the huge cruiser, and when I was about to be the next victim of the amphibian, I jumped into the water, praying it wouldn't catch me. When I fell in the water, there was no trace of the monster near me, so I breathed a sigh of relief. There was no way it could catch my wife. Near me was a person with a life jacket. The man might have been protected from drowning, but he had a huge wound that cost him his life. I took the life jacket and looked up as a helicopter was arriving above me. I couldn't see well, but I recognized my wife inside the helicopter. After that, I swam away as I watched the cruiser sink. I didn't want to be near that monster when it happened. A few hours later, I had a stroke of luck, and a small boat found me and picked me up. When I got ashore, I tried every way I could to contact my wife, but it was to no avail. Neither she nor any of the other passengers ever showed up again. No one ever reported what happened to that cruise ship. It was as if it never existed. When I tried to raise my voice, I only received mockery and some insults on the networks. But outside of them, I began to see how some people were watching me. They didn't even bother to hide. It was as if they wanted me to know that they were watching me. I don't know who these people are or what will happen to me in the future. I just want to find my wife and forget what happened with that terrifying monster. But every time I close my eyes, I see it.